Greetings everyone, and welcome back to the VGC Draft League Season 3. We're here in Week 8, so we're winding down on the regular season, just one more week to go after this. And this time I'm up against Armitroner, where they're rocking a Dondozo Tatsugiri squad, with the option for some gimmicks like Parasong Murkrow, Toxic Orb on the Tatsugiri, and even Flamigo, to make it even harder on me. So got my work cut out for me, especially since I had to make up for these 2 consecutive weeks of losses. A little bit tough, but I think we can make it through. Some things I'm keeping an eye on, of course, Dondozo and Tatsugiri, just always have to have a failsafe for that, otherwise it just runs away with the game for free. But also Armitroner has been running pretty consistently the Slowbro Galar with the stored power moveset, so Iron Defense, Calm Mind, stored power, to try and make it tough for the opponents to kind of cut through and deal with that. But I'm also secretly keeping an eye on this Chansey as well, because a lot of my consistent offensive threats end up being special, which Chansey can just tank up, right? And on top of that, I don't have a strong stab post combat that I really want to use. There's of course the Hisuian Sneasel there, but it hasn't shown up just yet, and it's really tough for me to want to slot in just for that purpose. So the heaviest hitting moves stabbed from my side is really just Woodhammer from Rillaboom. Salamence on the physical side really only have like the Dragon Claw and then Iron Thorns with at best Rock Blast if I want to go like a loaded dice move set, but that's going to cause some problems if Chansey is on the field and I can't consistently find a way to get rid of it. But I think I've got a pretty solid plan here. Leading off is going to be the Gardevoir. It's a bulky set with Citrus Berry and Terra Grass, but the thing to note here is running Calm Mind, Imprison, Psychic, and Terra Blast. Reason for that is Sylveon is kind of a dangerous Pokemon on their team. They, doing some scouting, they've relied on quite a bit. They make it really bulky, stack up Calm Mind boost, and then it can run away with the game. That kind of seems to be their niche, getting a bunch of stat boosts, making their Pokemon really bulky, and then just clearing your Pokemon off the field in one go. But the moveset that you typically rely on is Calm Mind, Wish, Protect, and Terra Blast. So if I can lock them out of that and potentially even trace the Pixelate from the Sylveon, I can not only stop them from setting that up, but also use it to my own advantage there. I think it could be pretty gnarly. The Heatran, mainly I'm just looking for coverage with this Pokemon, just looking to lay down a lot of damage all at once. So going with 4 moves, and figured going with 4 moves, I'm just go with the Assault Vest. Right, that'll also help me with the Tatsugiri if it's just solely attacking. I won't die immediately to the Muddy Water, get just a little bit of a buffer there. And also, if I decide to Terra, it'll also help buffer a little bit versus the Sylveon if it ever comes down to that, and I don't have the Gardevoir in play. The Iron Thorns, similar concept. I'm just looking for a lot of coverage, so it's also a 4 attacking mon, even though it's not like locked by choice or by Assault Vest. But running the Clear Amulet, because we're expecting the Tauros to come in and cut down on my physical attacks, which further makes it trouble for trying to deal with the Chansey later on. But with the Clear Amulet, I get to do a ton of damage across the board, super effective or neutrally, and they can't necessarily clear me off the field immediately, especially if I go with the Terra Flying, and just lay into the Tauros with the Terra Blast Flying, hopefully get a knockout, and then keep it rolling from there. But if not, I'm confident it can get like a good enough amount of damage, especially if I get like a speed drop with a Rillaboom or some pressure on with the Gardevoir, to where I can just freely attack whatever I want and then come back in the late game and clean up whatever I missed. Speaking of Rillaboom though, we're going a little bit off script this time since Heatran has the Assault Vest and Rillaboom doesn't have access to it as a result. Going with the Grassy Seed, that'll further help bulk me up against the Tauros there, so I don't immediately have to commit to Terra Water. I can just save it for something that I want to use Terra Blast with, and then upon surviving, I just do typical Rillaboom things. Drum beating to get the speed drop and some chip damage, and knock off to get rid of any like pesky leftovers or items that I have to worry about. And of course, fake out pressure is always welcome. Business as usual, right? Next up is Salamence, and if you've been eyeing that, it's got the Scope Lens Focus Energy, so a callback to Series 1 or Regulation A if you prefer, where one of the ways of getting around stat boosts, particularly Dondozo and Tatsugiri, was using focus energy and scope lens to get the automatic critical hit, so that the Draco meter would just rip right through them and do a ton of damage. On top of that, it also avoids or negates the special attack drop by virtue of it, just getting an automatic crit, which ignores those stat changes. And then last but not least, Vaporeon is the obvious insurance to the Dondozo Tatsugiri. What with it being immune to the Wave Crash, if it's aimed into that slot, and being able to haze away any stat boost. But not only versus Dondozo, it's a good way to check any Calm Minds from Sylveon or any stat boosts from Slowbro. Additionally, it stat drops from Salamence, so if I go down on the Draco Meteor, it's a good way to clear that if I wasn't able to get the focus energy up. So yeah, I think I've got an overall solid plan, solid answers to the questions posed by my opponent's Pokemon. Let's take a look and see how the matches go. Of course, starting off with game number 1, where we see the Sylveon, Dondozo, Tatsugiri, Chansey, Tauros, and the Slowbro. So all the expected players, including the Chansey that we were slightly worried about whether we could deal with it consistently, but we'll figure it out as we go along and just try and reserve our physical attackers as best as possible. But in any case, the Terras are a little bit of a curious nature. So Sylveon with Terra Poison, it's a solid way of making sure that Steel is neutral while also mitigating damage from the Rillaboom. Since its defenses, its physical defense is on the lower side, one of the ways that I have of attacking into it is, of course, the Rillaboom, and if they can slow that down, that could be a solid angle for them. It also checks the Hisuian Sneasel if I ever decide to opt in for that. I haven't brought it so far, but it is kind of this looming thing in the back, especially as a potential way of dealing with their Chansey. So any poison jabs into that slot also get resisted. The Dondozo seems to have a similar theme, where they're looking for a Terra Flying possibly to resist the grass moves from the Rillaboom, while also not making them susceptible from something like Terra Grass Heatran, where it'll resist Dondozo's moves while firing off a now super effective fire type move, Stabbed. It does expose itself to the electric type moves from Iron Thorns and Sandy Shocks, or rather it retains that susceptibility, but they can have some relative confidence that it'll beat those options if they ever show up on the field. But still pretty weird, because you typically see something like Terra Grass, right? We see 3 Terra Dragons, all seemingly to stop up the Heatran and Rillaboom from doing too much damage, quite possibly. I'm not sure there. But the Tatsugiri could also take advantage of it offensively, just to boost its Draco Meteors or Dragon Pulses if it needs to. And then last but not least, very typical Terra Grass for the Tauros, or for any fire Pokemon really, so nothing out of the ordinary for that. But let's go ahead and get into the match here. We do see the Tauros Sylveon lead from my opponent Armitroner here. It's pretty typical for a lead for them there, and then just save the Tatsugiri Dondozo for later. Meanwhile, I'm leading off the Rillaboom Iron Thorns. Just want to see, gonna test the waters and see how well Iron Thorns is positioned into this match here. So we go for a fake out into the Sylveon, stop it from getting any Calm Mind boost since I'm not running the Gardevoir too soon. I did want to see if it is running the Hyper Voice this time, just in case I'm wrong with my prediction here. But we get a free Terra Blast flying into the Tauros, do a ton of damage to it, but not enough for a knockout. Rillaboom, on the other hand, takes the Raging Bull, super effective, but doesn't even bring it below 50% health. And we also get some regeneration from the Grassy Terrain, of course. Following turn, they get a Stone Edge off from the Iron Thorns, same deal, not enough to get me below 50%, but meanwhile, same deal for me. Heavy Slam into the Sylveon, not enough for a one-hit KO, and they get some recovery from their Wiki Berry there. They also get a Calm Mind boost, so it could get scary if there's a knockout that occurs on this turn, but fortunately the defensive boosts are enough, so the Raging Bull doesn't knock out the Rillaboom. I get some chip damage with the Drum Beating. That's a very bulky Sylveon with the aid of Intimidate from Tauros, and with the Rock Slide double up, while I do get the Tauros, I don't get the Sylveon, and that allows them to knock out my Rillaboom in turn. But it's done most of what it needs to do here, so I'm more than glad to have that free switch, especially as Tatsugiri comes in to face down my Salamence. Unless they're running Choice Scarf, I'm pretty confident my Salamence will outrun them at max speed Timid, so I clear them off the field with a Draco Meteor. Unfortunately, no Focus Sash there either, so pretty free KO, and we finalize the KO onto the Sylveon with Wild Charge from Iron Thorns. And that's pretty much all she wrote. A 3v1 versus Dondozo, who has to take a wild charge without any stat boost there, brings it below almost to the 30% there. And that's just more than enough for the Salamence to get a final KO. We cycle it out to get rid of the special attack drops. We don't want to show off focus energy too soon here. So a quick Draco Meteor on the final turn of the game gets us into game number 2 with a win under our belts. Gonna go ahead and try and carry that momentum and call out their lead in game number 2 here. So Iron Thorns, while it did its magic, and I think it's still pretty good in this matchup, we want to go ahead and lock them up from any further options. We're kind of predicting a potential Slowbro lead here. We do see it next to the Tauros. Even if it ran with the Sylveon again, Gardevoir will lock up both of them from using anything like Calm Mind here while threatening the Slowbro with a Psychic. But meanwhile, because they led up with that, Salamence gets a free way to focus energy, especially with the double swap out from their side. And we do get our Imprison, which is going to lock up this Sylveon. It didn't seem like from the first game like they might have had Hyper Voice, so it's pretty confident with that lead here. But we're not confident in what chance he may have. Not sure if there's like an Ice Beam or a Thunder Wave there. So we're gonna go ahead and protect with the Salamence there. They show off Heal Pulse just in case they took some incoming damage on the Tauros. We got a Calm Mind boost in the process though, so we're sitting pretty. They go for a Helping Hand to try and get some damage from the Tauros, possibly that Gardevoir that's locking up their Sylveon and Slowbro. But we get a Air Slash off or before they even get a chance to move. Very likely thanks to that timid nature, which is working out perfectly for us. Get some chip damage on this Chansey with Psychic and a special defense drop as well. The following turn, we get a Draco Meteor. Again, the theme is not enough for a one-hit KO onto the Slowbro there, but we do force it to eat its Aguav Berry. Does take a Heal Pulse from the Chansey though, so it's back up to full, but all it can do right now is go for an Iron Defense to get the stat boost it needs for the stored powers. But with a double up from Draco Meteor and a Psychic from Gardevoir, they're not even going to get the chance there. Chansey looks like it's full utility, not any attacking moves to work with, or at least nothing that they can use with while Gardevoir is on the field. And with Sylveon the only remaining potential attacker and no way to cut through this Gardevoir, Armitroner sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. I do apologize for the underhanded tactics there, but I was very curious to see if I could lock you up with that. And I didn't imagine game number 2 would go as well as it did for my end. But good games nonetheless, and good luck in the final week, number 9 of this competition. Either way, there's not too much to say past that. So if you enjoyed this video, just please leave a like and a comment below, and I will see you for the final season match coming up next week. Take care.